Let's return now to this historic visit by the President of Israel, Isaac Herzog, and his wife, the First Lady of Israel, Michelle. Let's bring in Joel Burnie, a regular on this program. He's with the Australia-Israel Jewish Affairs Council Executive Manager. Joel, thanks for your time. How do you reflect on the visit by the President of Israel, and how will Australia's Jewish community receive it in the wake of the December terrorist attack?
Well, thank you as always for having me on, Kieran. Well, it's a historic visit by itself. We don't usually get sitting presidents or sitting prime ministers from Israel reaching our shores. So in terms of the irregularity of it, it's rather historic. I do wish that it was under different circumstances, but I do want to note the magnitude and the importance of his visit to the Jewish community. We have been a very lonely community for the past 2 and a bit years post-October 7, Kieran, and with the horrific events of the 14th of December, we are, living with our trauma and living with the, trying to move on from the death of so many of our fellow members of our community. His visit here is as a representative of the only Jewish nation, is quite important for all of us to come here in our time of need and show solidarity with the Australian Jewish people.
What did you make of his comments in relation to the protests about various things? They got individuals with all sorts of messages, some genuine concerns about the way the Netanyahu government and military have carried out the war. And then he made some interesting remarks going to Australian history, where we were among the first nations to support the establishment on a bipartisan basis of the Jewish state.
So for well over 70 years, Australia and Israel have had a very close bilateral relationship that was indeed a bipartisan position through multiple and successive governments. And that relationship is historic, as he alluded to. He made reference to the Battle of Beersheba in October of 1917, a very famous battle of the Australian Light Horse. The next day, and the battle itself allowed for what happened the next day, which was indeed the Balfour Declaration by Lord Balfour, the Foreign Secretary of the British government, stating that it was the British endeavour to establish a Jewish homeland in the recently liberated area from the Ottoman Turks in 1917. Australia, obviously due to alphabetical order, but no less important, was the first nation to vote for Israel's independence in 1947. And since then, and up until a couple of years ago, the relationship was very, very deep. I'll give you an example. In the past 10 years, Israeli intelligence has saved Australian lives, Kieran. That is the depth of the relationship, where a country so many thousand kilometres away is going to utilise its intelligence assets to tip off our intelligence agencies to make sure that Australians are safe. Now, that is the example of what friendship is all about, and the relationship is significantly deeper than that. So in terms of, I said last night on Sky with James McPherson that I think that Isaac Herzog as an individual is the right character to come here at this time. And I think that his message to the protesters encapsulates exactly the type of leader that he is. And without anger and without frustration, he just explained that criticism and fair criticism of Israel's actions is one thing, and that is acceptable in any debate. In my community here, Kieran, in Australia, and indeed also in Israel, there are deep debates about this. But when you cross the line in calling for the destruction of Israel, the demonization, or the double standards and demonization, it's just got to stop. So that's a clear line that was crossed, and I think he articulated that perfectly.
Well, yeah, and I guess we get back to the point. I'll just finish on this, Joel, but you look at the atrocities perpetrated by the regime, the appalling regime in Tehran right now, tens of thousands of civilians being massacred in the wake of that. Australians of Iranian descent aren't held responsible for the actions of that appalling regime. And I'm just making the point that it seems a unique situation where Jews are held accountable for, and Australian citizens are held responsible for the actions of a foreign government.
Correct. And that goes to the essence of what the issue has been for the Jewish community for the past 2 and a bit years. We are not responsible for what you think is going on over there, and nor should we be. And on the one hand, you are entirely correct about the protesters not attacking the Iranian diaspora here, and that is obviously a good thing. But secondly, if these social justice warriors are so concerned about things that are going on in Israel, why are they not concerned at all about what's going on in Iran? Muslim victims being butchered in the tens of thousands, some estimates close to 40 to 50,000 people in the past 4 weeks, and these protesters who have shut down our country for the past 2 and a bit years are nowhere to be seen. So the hypocrisy is quite clear, and it seems as though that these people, backed by federal members of parliament, including in the Greens party as well, it's okay to attack a Jew and it's okay to attack Israel, but on the same merits, you have nothing to say about the regime in Iran.
Joel, thank you as always, and we hope that the visit by President Herzog and the First Lady does bring some comfort to our mourning and grieving Jewish fellow Australians. Thanks, Joel.
Thanks, Kieran.